Welcome back to Hobbit Racing. We are post-storm cleanup and we are back continuing to get some new tunes out there. That's the name of the game. Specifically, I don't even have a picture of the full car done yet. In fact, we are literally in deconstruction stage right here. As you can see, if you know, you know. If you don't, I'll tell you. This is the body of a Fly 91710. This wonderful Jagermeister livery, and we seem to be missing the bottom. We're not missing the bottom, though. What we're dealing with is a chassis that is made in such a way that I call it a bucket. But we're going to do lots of things to this car to get rid of that bucket for what I believe increases performance. A lot of people know that it does. Maybe some have documented. I'm going to take you through my experiences and how I do it. A lot of ways to make this Fly model yours. Ways to enhance the performance. Maybe you have to put a class compliant motor in it. And other things are allowed to increase the performance. So I'm going to do a lot of modeling and tinkering combined with some slot car tuning. Okay, so here's how this is going to work for Vic. Vic's going to hang tight here, but Vic's eventually going to lose his legs. But he won't mind because it'll make Vic faster. In all seriousness, we want this car to turn out like this car, where you can see that we've removed that pan. It takes a lot when you do that. It's going to take less here. Notice all the intricacies on the top of this with the motor and everything on this beautiful 91710. And the difference here is this one is a little bit more intact, covered. It's a slight variant of that model. And so I don't expect it to be the exact same thing with all this falling apart. Under here, I do expect this little bit of wishbone suspension, aka not really wishbone suspension, the fakeness that is holding the axle down. That's something that is a design process that was uniquely thought about. I honestly, you know, put in the comments if you know. I'm just calling it like more styrene based. You know, we all are familiar with our slotted chassis and our, you know, NSR chassis and Thunder slot chassis. You know, NSR and Thunder slot chassis are a little bit more taffy-like, as I like to call them, and even most Flies are. But this is not, well, this is not this, right? This is a Fly 917. Hobbit Racing, very fast car. Wonderful tune right there, all aftermarket, except for the chassis and the body. But this is not, this is actually white. If you were to scrape this away, this is white. It's not, I don't think it's ABS. So let's all look together for the very first time. You know, again, reminder here, I hope I'm paying it forward in the best way possible. This car was probably coming from an estate sale, and I got it for $20. $20 on eBay. You can find this car probably for upwards of $80 to $100. Because this is a great car, right, Rafa? This is a beautiful car. I mean, this body is just something to behold. So let's behold that body for a second while we can in the light. I mean, that's just, I know my left from my right, huh? That's just, wow. Wow, they knew what they were doing. Arrow, arrow, arrow. Even in 1973, which is the year of this one. But now you notice the all-important, hey, Tony, what happened to the bottom of the, what happened to the rest of the body? Well, this was by design at the time. Not something that we can't all appreciate, but not something that I'm going to leave as it is. So, this is all going to be lifted off of here. This is going to be taken off of here, and this is where we're going to evaluate just what we're looking at inside of here. Now, to be fair, if all else comes to fruition the right way, maybe I can leave the rear end intact. Except that seems so loose compared to what this one here came out to be. This one right here is the original rear end, and it's got that little, just a little bit more than a thousandths worth of play that I would like. This one's got a lot more play going on with it than I might desire, like a lot more play. If I hold that up to the light, I mean, you can't, that's going to affect performance. So this rear end might have to go right out of the gate. We do have some, you can see there's some brass bushings in there that are going to help us.
So we'll see. I may not be as good at taking this apart from behind the camera as I would like to be. Woo, I almost dropped it. I almost dropped it right there. Let's make sure we're not missing anything on the bottom. Let's see where we are here. There we go. There we go. Gonna hurt us in any way? I don't think so. You'll already see that that's starting to come loose. Help me. Help me, Rhonda. Probably doing it wrong, but I'm forgetting. I'm just forgetting what's holding me up. Oh, now I've remembered what's holding me up. Now I remember what's holding me up. I don't know if they're glued or not. So close. So close. Marty, I'm reminded of you in the instance when you were taking apart. Oh my, hang on a second. Hung up somewhere. But you can already see what's happening here. Obviously, the tires are going to come loose. This is holding on to everything here. So we're probably going to chop this in half, glue this down, make sure that the front wheels, the front axle's in good shape, and then we'll card Vic. It's a cool, I like the tan fire suit that he's wearing. Yeah, let's pause here so I can get my hands and my eyes on it closer, and then I'll explain what it was. Well, as it turned out, it was none other than Vic himself. So, you know, I'm David Copperfield now. And so it's okay, Vic. It's just an illusion. It's not real. He was holding on to the steering wheel. He was literally blocking the steering wheel with his hands. So, yeah, poor guy. Everything you see there except for the fire extinguisher that we'll card and we'll lay down there for him to grab. Not that a fire extinguisher was going to help anybody when these cars were just rolling gas cans. But in any event, yep, so now you can see what I talked about here. These pieces right here fit right into these axle blocks, but a unique axle block, right? You know, in theory, it's an interesting little setup, and certainly it's going to work. You know, you just have to basically put them in there, and then they do fit in very nicely, but they don't stay, right? So they're in there now that I put them back in place, but they will not stay there. You can snap them in, as I just attempted to, and again, much harder for me to do this behind the camera, but they'll be glued, trust me. They'll be glued in there, and you know, there's really no reason. That axle is a very good axle. That block, it all holds it well, so that's good. That stays put. So we're gonna remove all of this, and then we're carefully gonna undo all this get up here so we can get to the motor and the rear end, because we need to investigate what in the world is making that so loose, when a lot of times the flies, you know, might need a little bit of work. And again, we're gonna shave this bucket off of here and make it part of the top of the car and glue those pieces together so we have a contiguous number 7, if you'll allow the expression. But and I'm going to show you some fancy ways to be careful and get in there if you want to do it with a blade first, or if you're super confident and you're like, I can do this with a Dremel. You can only do it once, keep in mind. You can't do it again. So, you know, but we'll get in there, and again, I'm going to turn off the camera and make sure that I don't muck this up. All right, so next step in the process was to carefully, and I mean carefully, all you got to do is give it a little bit of a nudge. Just give it a little bit of a nudge. Rocker it back and forth a little bit at a time. All of these little things go a long way. If you card the interior of this, you're going to save so much weight from that piece of plastic. And see, I told you everything's fine. Look at Vic's all together. He's back in one piece. Anyway, he's fine. So you can see where the driver's seat was attached, and you can see where the passenger seat was attached. or maybe it's the other way around, sorry. I guess this would have been the driver's seat. It was attached in two places right here, and the passenger seat was attached here and here. And so, you know, now we're free. So now the next step is I've already loosened this one. This bit of glue came out rather easily. This bit of glue is not coming out as easy as I'd like it to. So again, I'm not going to do that in front of the camera because I want to save the integrity of this. It actually took me about 10 seconds, maybe less. You've just got to realize that that's a spot of glue in there. You just got to be firm, but not overly forceful, and boom, both sides came out. So now you should be able to remove all the cosmetic cage of this, depending on how it's on here. It's definitely come loose. We should be able to lift. I think there's one more spot. Yes. One more spot right there, I believe, is plastic and glue. So the careful thing that you need to do here is, if you look closely, in order to do this successful slot car surgery, this cage goes underneath the pipes. So you can't just grab this and rip it out of here. It's not going to work successfully. In fact, I'd have to even figure out how in the world they got it under there. But they did. So you want to remove that part right there. So hang tight on that. And once again, in this case, this was not a oh, my dogs are going crazy. And in this case, this was not a prying up. This was a prying in this direction upward, and easily, again, it's plastic, just glued in there. You can see firm, but not forceful. Firm and, you know, some pressure to move it, not a quick rip. And I was easily able to, the Pangea agrees with me, so does Smokey. And look, I was easily able to, and you can notice this does come over the top of the wheels and then comes off. And then you have the whole entire integrity of the back end of this. And then we can just carefully, no matter what motor we put on here or what wheels, we can come right back over the top of it and put it on there. So look at that. We have deconstructed, for the most part, the 91710. We're going to continue to take out the rest of these pieces. I can't recall if there's any benefit to this piece right here. I mean, we know it holds the magnet, but I can't remember if there's any benefit to this piece. I don't believe there is. So we're just going to pry this up, obviously. Most likely, you know, flat panning. Most likely flat panning the entire rest of this. We want to remove all of these things. Well, not these. Sorry. These are vitally important. You're not going to be removing those. But all the rest of this, we want to make this as flat panned as possible. Looks like that piece of plastic might have even been glued to that magnet. Oh, look at that. How about that? The magnet came off right in time, just as I said, wow, and look at that magnet. Look at the age of that magnet. It's crumbling before our eyes. Another refrigerator magnet, or side of the PC magnet. All right. What's left of this here? And why is it not cooperating? There it goes. Okay, so again, don't throw away parts. You just never know. You just never know. But now we're down to it, bare bones, right? So let's just go ahead and get right to work on this. We want to pinch and pull. Pinch and pull if we can. If we can't, we get the needle nose pliers, and I can't do it. I can't do it, but I will. Okay, so I do want to take a look at this for a second and see why this is such a, honestly, maybe what could have happened there is, you know, these are just push-on knurled. Maybe it's just not on there all the way, but that's an awful lot, so we're not going to do it. I can't save this rear end, and I can't in good conscience not change this out to maybe, oh, I don't know, 34, 13, 36, 13, 35, 13, or let's talk about it in a sense that's normal in my direction, 13, 36, 13, 35, 13, 34, something like that, where we can stick around a pinion that is something that I want to be at, and then we can change the spur, and then we'll obviously have to put different wheels on here. I'm not a big fan of, you know, sliding these back on and trying to glue them and get them to the right depth. You know, you've got axle spacers and things to consider. So, you know, maybe turn these wheels down and put them inside of a CV design. But something. This is what makes our hobby so much fun, to be able to take a car like this and then make it my own, including taking these pieces off the side and making them part of the top. So kind of a little bit of an introduction to the breakdown of this car. Shouldn't be overly complicated to get the motor out, but you do need to be careful whether you're going to take it from here and be, you know, on the plastic. What you need to be very careful of is, and I've experienced this, I think this is my second or third one of these, you need to be very careful about this housing here. This is so fragile. I've had to glue one back together and the car still performs well, but you really need to be careful. So you've got to find, again, a firm but not overly forceful way to get it out of there. And I would probably recommend maybe not coming from the end bell side, maybe coming from the other side like that, and then taking out the end bell side, and then there you go. So we're in a decent place, you know, can pry apart the wheels and everything, and then it's time to have this thing fully taken apart, and then we will go ahead and we will do some careful surgery here. And then, you know, you got one shot to do that. Well, two shots, two sides, but you get one shot to do each side. And then after that, we're going to take some practice fits up against the bottom of this. And then, of course, when you super glue the edges of this thing, you do only have one shot, but you got to get a good, you know, get a good guide, get a good listing, and you got about, you know, what, 1.5, 2 seconds to maybe make a minor adjustment. But believe me, folks, if I can do it and you want to do it, you can do it. That one is lined up pretty well. All right, so just to complete the process here again, this is easy, you know, this is not surprising. They came off very, very easy as far as how that goes. And, you know, interestingly enough, you know, the ends of these, you know, maybe they could be slid on there and pushed on tighter or what have you, but can't seem to do that on the non-gearing side. And then, of course, what's going to happen here is that this gear is on a knurled axle that is holding it on. So you're just going to have to use a bit of force and slide it off eventually. But that wheel came off first instead, which is fine. And then we're all set and out of here. So, you know, I think maybe I'll try and pull it off this time. Maybe I'll try and save these wheels and push them back on. If you didn't get it where you wanted to, hold one wheel tight and you probably can loosen the other wheel that you super glued on there. But, you know, it's really your own, it's your own choice in terms of how you want to go around about this. You know, not everybody has the skill set to take a wheel like this, take the tire off and turn it down and create a wheel insert out of it. You know, so maybe I'll try and keep it simpler. Maybe I will show an approach where I'll save these rear wheels. Obviously, these won't be the tires that we're going to use. You know, these are stock rubber. I don't know what the Shore is from Fly, but, you know, these are still the CB48s. Quick slicks will go on here straight up. Can't remember the number for super tires to go on there, but, you know, it's a, I can't remember what it is. It's a pretty wide wheel, obviously, that, you know, it takes it. But I'll try and save the integrity of these, and we will put it back together exactly as it came, and that way we don't have to go through a big process to change out to other wheels. So now that we have our wheels and everything apart, we will also, you know, you can obviously do another double check right here. Like, here's another thing. At least we get bushings in the back of here. We get nice metal bushings, but I can tell you right now, very easily can they be spun. Put them where they need to be, whether they need to be resting completely to the outside or whether they need to be resting completely to the inside. Eventually put your axle back in there, glue them in place where you want to, and we'll get to that step. But this is in a bad spot where I can start to work on the chassis here and I can start to get rid of these pieces. So that's it in a nutshell. There's a safe, careful deconstruction of a Fly 91710. And that safe, careful reconstruction? That safe, careful deconstruction puts us in a place to properly tune this car. If you're going for a true proper tune to put some performance into this car, that's the first step that you have to go through. You've got to basically take this entire thing completely apart and break it down to build it back up. All right, so let's open up a little bit more on the strategy before we end this first video about this car. Here's the model for our effort, right? You can see the interior. Now the interior, this is a little bit different. This was even more intricate because on this 91710, all that beauty of the motor is shown. But on The other one here, we've got the Jaeger where it's all going to be buried. But we want to card the interior. We want to keep the integrity of at least the rear end of that, right? We want the model itself to still be portrayed. Again, well, still, we're going to keep in mind we're going to reattach these sides when we take them off of there, right there. But, you know, we want to keep the rest of the model with some integrity so that, like, you know, Lou here, you know, he's in half, cutting all that weight down, but still we got a nice model right there. So, you know, if we keep that in our back of our minds, then what the things that we want to do is we want to look at things like this. Like, you can obviously tell that we don't need to do anything over the top of the front wheels. We just need to secure those just as they are right there. They snap in and put some super glue on them. So right from the get-go, you can immediately chop all of this off. This right here will look like this. There is no reason for any of that to be weighting down the front of this car. I think last time I did do some conglomeration of all the plastic and I weighed it. I can't remember what it actually ended up being. But maybe that's what we'll do this time. Maybe we'll take all of the bits and pieces and we'll weigh it and we'll see just how much weight we saved in the upper part of the car so that when we add weight down low, we gain weight by putting it down low and we've taken it away from the top. So like I said, from the get-go, you know, just like I said, the best way to do it is to use my hand. If I could actually grab the part in my three-dimensional world. Oh my goodness. That's gone, right? That is immediately, that's the Dremel, whatever tool you have, adios, right? And then if you look, you should be able to see that same thing right there, right? Look at that right there. That's what that's going to look like. That part, those are the same two triangles. You see where they meet right there? I'll try and do it a little bit cleaner than I did on that one. You can still see that. But that's where that rests. And then that right there would be probably something that I carded and maybe painted it silver. I think I carded it and painted it silver so that you couldn't see through. Yep. I carded it and painted it silver so that you couldn't see through to the other side when you look through his feet. So that's one of the things conceptually that'll happen there. Now, the interesting part about this is if you look at the width of this, we're also going to be saving some of this, but you can also see by superimposing this over the top of that, we're going to be cutting out a decent bit of the sides as well. We want just enough to get underneath the edge of the car to make it look like it's still in play. We'll be able to shave that too. So we're going to probably end up cutting off, oh, I'd say maybe to right there as well. So all you're going to be left with is about right here all the way through here and then right to there again and then the back. That's going to be a big bit of dremeling right there, which will also probably limit our ability to put this back into play here because we don't want it anyway because it's going to be stuck to the top of the underside of the body. And then last consideration before we really start to get into this as we've deconstructed is the fact that the motor is resting underneath and mostly hidden here. So my strategy for a situation like this is to keep this intact, but to also maintain all that beautiful work right there is to start by putting just a drop or two of probably not even CA glue, but probably our testers that turns clear so that we don't end up decoloring and, you know, removing any of that finish right there. Just right there, right on that circle or right on that circle and meshing them up. And then in doing so, once we've got them in the right places, and you can use a nice guide on the back of these 917s where I can put it where it belongs and then show you, there are these two black curved tubes that rest up against the underside of the body. And then you'll know that you've got this in the right place. And then the only thing you'll have to do from there on out is this piece free floats if you were going to use it that way, but you can't, because if you're going to take your body on and off and on and off and make adjustments, as much as it might pain you, you have to cut some of that off. Otherwise, you'll never be able to take it on and off because your motor will get caught on it. And so you'll see here, I had to carefully with the Dremel decide where to make that cut right there so that I could still get that over the top of it. Now, I might have made a little bit of an over adjustment on that, and I could have kept, I don't know, whatever parts of a motor that really was from a real car, where you can see that I still was able to maintain this piece of black right here. So again, I might be able to do a little bit more and maintain some of this, But I don't believe that based on where the motor is and where everything else is, that you can leave this on here, because once you permanently put this piece on the top against the body, as opposed to it being attached to the bottom of the car where it originated and it went into these pegs here, everything changes at that point in time. You cannot expect that a motor is going to be perfectly aligned every time you go to take that body off of that chassis and you need to do work on it. So we'll see what happens, and then ultimately these pieces will not have any pegs to go into. These pegs won't have a space to go into, and they will be super glued lightly, or again, tester's glue against the top of the underside. Sorry about the focus. The top of the underside of the body right there, and then we'll figure out just how much of that we have to cut off. Maybe we can just every once in a while go like this, and we don't have to cut any of it off, and we can still find a way to get it around the motor. I'm not 100% sure, but I can tell you one thing: it's going to all equate to a excellent performing fly slot car and still maintaining a good looking fly slot car.
So that was just the beginning of what'll probably end up being, 3 parts maybe, right? It's important that when you're going to do something like this in the modeling world, that especially if you can understand that this is a moving model, right? It's a slot car, but you can maintain some integrity of the vehicle. From a modeling perspective, there are so many ways to get it done, but there are so many nice things that you can do where we can still appreciate this lovely body, right? We can still appreciate this lovely slot car and for what it is. And if you want, and if you're willing to make a few enhancements here and there combined in the slot car tuning environment with reducing all of this weight and really putting it in a great performing state, there are things that we can do. So be on the lookout for the next video where you start to see me make some of those enhancements now that we've deconstructed the car. And now we're going to start really breaking down the pieces that we don't need, adding the things that we want to from our tuning perspective, like the guide that I want personally, the motor that I want to run for the class compliance for that car that Fly Classics fits in at Hobbit Racing Park behind us. So that's going to be the next set of circumstances that we're going to talk about. So leave me some feedback about this video if you would. And don't forget, hit that subscribe button. And I will talk to you all the next time. Take care.
If you don't subscribe to Hobbit Racing, I'll poke you with my staff. Pokey, pokey, pokey.
She will poke you with her staff.
Pokey!